You're watching The Multidimensional MD. Thank you for helping us wake up medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Arlene Diamco, and I'm talking to my good friend here, Reiki pioneer, and also integrative health practitioner, Pamela Miles. So, Pamela, you love to talk about creating healthy boundaries. It's such an important topic for overall balance and health. What does that actually mean? What is a healthy, compassionate boundary?
There's no formula for it, but we know it when it's happening, you know? And so, as a beginning exercise, I encourage people, if they're unsure of their boundaries in any given moment, just to start flexing the large muscles of their body, like the glutes. Those are real easy. Those are the muscles you're sitting on, people. And when you flex them, it makes you a little higher, a little taller in your chair. And if you flex and hold for even 15, 20, 30 seconds, it's going to bring your awareness to your physical form. And our physical bodies have very clear boundaries. It's on emotional and psychospiritual levels that we're not always so clear where the boundaries are. So if you feel that your boundaries are not so strong in the moment, how would you know that? You're feeling spacey, you're feeling intimidated. We all have our own responses, and this is a good thing for people to discover for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a cue that it's time to start flexing those muscles. You can even do your biceps, but your quads are another very large muscle group. Those are the muscles in the top of your thighs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're easier to do one at a time. And it can be amazing how much better you feel. You lose that kind of woozy feeling, that is, I got to get out of here feeling. Well,
Uh-huh.
getting out of here may be a good idea, but you're safer getting in your body, being really grounded in your body before you get out of someplace.
So this is not just boundaries in terms of like with other people or spaces, but also a boundary with your 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 physical being and your like spiritual and energetic being.
And your mind. I'm so glad you brought that up, because people tend to go to relationships when they
Mhm.
first think of boundaries,
Yep.
and too often they think that boundaries are something that other people should have better, should
Yeah.
be better at. But it's interesting how when we start being aware of our boundaries, it's not so much setting them, they're not arbitrary, but being aware of them and feeling when we start to get uncomfortable, and then having a few things that we can do, like the um, exercise that I just mentioned. But it's also with our minds. We
Uh-huh.
need to have boundaries with our minds. For example, you don't let yourself think of horrible things that might happen. You just don't do that. There's nothing that is going to be gained by doing that. So if you notice that your mind is spiraling, you go to something that is uplifting for you. And this is very individual. For me, um, there is an aria in La Fille du Régiment, and Pavarotti sang it so beautifully. And there's 9 high C's, and a high C is a very heartfelt sound. And I listened to that, and there's no drug in the world that could change my mood as fast as listening to "O Mes Amis" is the name of it, in case anybody wants to look it up. But we know what makes us feel good. We
Uh-huh.
know what uplifts us, and it's individual. And the trick is to have a few things around so we can turn to them easily. For someone, it may be a scent, like having some lovely Bulgarian rose essential
Uh-huh.
oil,
Uh-huh.
that you could just put a touch on your finger and smell it. Again, it's very of the heart.
So we're going to be listening to that song right after this.
I hope so.
Yeah. I'm still on the song. We'll put a link out to you so everyone can click on that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, I mean, remind me of that healthy boundaries is it's really being aware of you and yourself. And I feel this a lot as a cranial osteopath and integrative physician, is that it's like if people have these huge fields, your big heart field, your energetic field, and then they can pick up a lot of static in the world. And so it's like things just kind of like get stuck on them. But that means that you don't have a clear sense of your own boundary, because if you did, you had more clarity for yourself, that those things just wouldn't stick, because you'd be like, you would know who you are, and you would know that you're this amazing, loving being of light and love, and there would be no need to pick up on all of that static. And it also reminds me of like of parenting in a positive and loving way, because parenting, when it's a baby, they need much smaller boundaries to keep their world safe. And then as the child grows bigger, the toddlers, they get to roam more, but they still have this clear boundary. You don't let them go touch a hot stove or fall against a hard edge. And then these ever expanding boundaries, like as we grow too. But what you said about like not kind of like keeping a boundary for your mind, like this way, this is a better way to kind of like
Right.
a feel good way, so that you don't hurt yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't heal from that, but but why do that when there's a more fun and a way of ease?
Yeah, when we feel good about ourselves, we have good boundaries. And this is really the difference, because most people approach boundaries in a defensive mode. I'm going to keep
Mm,
you out. I'm going to keep you
mm,
out, and they confuse their heart and their emotions.
mhm,
Whereas the emotions are not of the spiritual heart. The emotions kind of orbit the heart. You have to be able to get through the emotional fields to be able to experience how strong your heart is. But once you do that, and spiritual practice helps, and this is something that we do in the program that I'm about to start, Blessed Boundaries, because living in your heart, living from your heart, expressing from your heart, grounded in your heart, you're not a wimp.
mhm,
You're not an emotional wreck. You're loving and you're strong and you're clear. And it's like, don't tread on me. It's not, don't
mhm,
tread on me. It's
uh-huh,
just, don't tread on me.
mhm,
and you understand that that's your job. Part of being an individual is, in a sense, to protect other people from hurting you. Because when we let people hurt you, and this is not blaming the victim. I'm not saying that everybody who has ever been hurt, that it's their fault. Not at all. But I'm talking about the small ways in which we let people hurt us, because we don't want to say no to them, because we're afraid of hurting their feelings.
mhm.
So learning how to decline the invitation without rejecting the person. you know
Graciously, yeah.
yes, like taking the person's hand, whether it's virtually or in person, and saying, thank you so much for thinking of me and wanting to share this with me, and I'm not available to do that, but thank
Mhm.
you, I really appreciate it, and let's plan something else.
That's a very Now I see the compassion for yourself and the other person, and yeah, that is a healthy, compassionate boundary for sure. And it's a very feel good. It's your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, um, and it helps you actually be able to forgive as well.
Absolutely, because the more honest we are with ourselves, the more we can see when we mess up, as we were talking about before. Like when I was younger, I never made a mistake. And now that I'm grown up, I make mistakes all the time.
Uh-huh.
and once I realized it was okay to make mistakes, and I was joking about that, right?
Uh-huh.
But once I realized it was okay to make mistakes, I started getting so much more productive, you
Uh-huh.
know,
Uh-huh.
and willing to access and express my creativity. And that's how I came up with these online interactive programs that I have, which are a little bit like living in a virtual ashram, that you go through your life as your life is, and you just put some time aside every day for your spiritual practice. And then when you can, you come online in this private part of my website and we interact online. So we don't have to be aligned with time zones,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always this feeling like, okay, my life is going as usual, and there's this incredible spiritual support because there's also an international community of people who are engaged in the program at the same time, and it's always so sweet to watch
Uh,
people transform their self concept and realize they don't
yeah.
have to protect themselves from themselves. They can be themselves and experience the love in their hearts and have space for the mistakes that invariably happen. They can ask forgiveness and they can give forgiveness and let go and carry on.
That's a amazing sacred space you've created for an international community. If anyone would like to look into that, it does start this Friday. And Pamela, can you tell people how to sign up for that if they'd like to?
Yeah, you could just Google Blessed Boundaries, BLESSED, boundaries. That alone will probably take you to the page, or go to PamelaMiles.com,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll see the link for Blessed Boundaries there. And if you have any questions at all about it, the best way to reach me, the fastest way to reach me, is to use the contact form on either of my websites.
Well, thank you so much, Pamela. We are running out of time here. I know we could talk for so much longer, but thank you for being here with me.